In this video, we'll show you how to cover up damage without cutting out bits of the original garment. I couldn't find any scrap fabric which is blue and matches the color, but I was able to find some red scrap fabric which kind of matches the artwork you see on the item. So now we're just marking the lines needed to cover the damaged part of the fabric, and on your scrap piece of fabric you mark out a similar area but also a little bit of fabric above and below that will help us attach everything together neatly. So now we have cut out the scrap piece of fabric into the correct size, and now we'll need to prepare the original garment by taking apart the side seam, and this would also be the same if you're working on trousers and not a t-shirt sleeve. So we have taken apart the seam slightly above and below the area of the patch, so it's easier to sew. Now we are ready to sew the patch onto the garment. Now we'll use temporary stitching to attach the two pieces together. Stretchy fabrics can be a bit harder to work with, so I recommend using temporary stitching to stitch together the extra areas that we have drawn on earlier to the other side of the fabric, so your job later is a lot easier. You can turn the sleeve inside out if it helps you with the sewing. Now we will proceed to sew on the patch with the right side facing up towards us. This is done with a straight stitch, and we're trying to keep a consistent distance of about 1 millimeter from the edge of the patch. Now we have sewn everything on, so we can actually get rid of the temporary stitching. As you can see here, we still have the side seam to do, which will be the next step. So now let's start working on putting together the seam. As you can see, there's the hole that I stitched up earlier. So first we're going to use a straight stitch just to stitch all these layers together, and then we're going to use the zigzag stitch to make sure that the fabric doesn't fray. As previously mentioned, we're sewing along the line of the original seam that we took apart earlier. on to using the zigzag stitch to tidy up the edges. This is done along the entire previously undone part of the side seam. This is the final result. Now you can continue wearing the shirt without worrying about the hole. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week with more videos on upcycling.